All right, let me do it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 152 of the Salvaggio and Cratty Sports Podcast. Here for you again on another Wednesday night, July 26th, 7:07 p.m. And Patrice Bergeron, if you missed it, has unfortunately retired. Ryan, I'll welcome you in by asking for your thoughts to kick us off, because I think most people understand mine at this point, my allegiance to the team and one Patrice Bergeron, but we'll kick it off with you. We'll switch it up a little bit. And how are you doing? Because I am still a little sad.
Yesterday was a mixed bag of emotions, a glass case of emotions, as one Ron Burgundy would put it. Because it was a weird day when it comes to Boston sports. Of course, you had the Patriots training camp start up, which wasn't even the biggest storyline from the day. You had Kike Hernandez get traded, which wasn't the biggest storyline of the day. You had Jaylen Brown sign an extension, which arguably wasn't the biggest story of the day. As you hit on, it was Patrice Bergeron retiring. Well, look, we've talked about it all offseason, kind of waiting and wondering what was going to happen with him. As the more time went on and the less you heard about it, you kind of started to get the feeling like, all right, he's probably going to hang it up. I was still holding a little bit of hope, as you know. I was kind of on the side of Krejci's 100% gone. Bergeron, got to think he maybe tries to come back, especially after how last year ended. I don't know how much with you working today you caught of his end of season press conference, thanking everybody and talking about that, or if you saw any of his comments on Twitter that people kind of grabbed from that. He the way it sounded, he kind of knew going into this previous year that this was probably going to be his last, barring any sort of crazy decision. But he kind of talked about wanting to spend more time with his family. Obviously, we know he just had his fourth child.
He also turned 38.
Exactly, he's getting older. Obviously, the situation with his father and having cancer, so probably wants to be there with him a little bit. So yeah, it stinks, but I'm not going to knock the guy for retiring. He gave you 19 phenomenal seasons, a pro's pro, as we all know. Can't ever say enough good things about Patrice Bergeron from a player, from a person standpoint. And it sucks because it's gonna leave a big hole in the lineup itself, but also on the organization. Now you try to transition towards a new era, per se, of Bruins hockey. And, obviously the questions come to who do you look to now to be the leader, all that kind of stuff, as we'll get into. But to sum it up, it sucks, but you kind of could see it coming. As we said, the longer things kind of played out, you really didn't hear anything until obviously yesterday.
Yeah. One of the interesting things to me was saying like he wanted to go out on top, like in terms of like the best visibilities, which is something you don't really hear that often with retirement, but I guess it makes sense. Look, 4 kids now, 38 years old, plenty of time in the game as an 18-year-old starting out. It's not like he came into the league at 21 or 22. As he's matured as a hockey player, the game has gotten a lot faster and changed, so that factors into it as well. Just shy of 1,300 regular season games, third most in Bruins history behind Bork and Busick. 427 goals behind Busick and Esposito for third. 613 assists, fourth in Bruins history behind Bork, Busick, and or third most points in Bruins history with 1,039. Or 1,040 behind Bork and Busick. 3-time All-Star, 6-time Selke winner, a Stanley Cup champion, 2-time finalist, 20th captain in Bruins history, a King Clancy in 12-13, Mark Messier Award in 2021. He was, I don't want to hear it. I've seen people talking about Datsyuk. The only thing Datsyuk has
the overrated talk,
over Bergeron is one more cup and like 2 King Clancy's. Like, sure, he had better hands and everything, but Patrice Bergeron was a better all-around player. Had more points, 1 less Stanley Cup, like 6 Selkies, finished top 3 12 straight years, top 5 for 14 years. It's Patrice Bergeron. I love Pavel Datsyuk. I really do. It's Patrice Bergeron, and it's not close. Nobody's close. In my opinion. And it's a huge void. It's a huge, huge void that you have to imagine ups the ante to upgrade the center position now. As I've talked about for a little while, they have been in the mix on Mark Scheifele. Elias Lindholm has piqued their interest. I forget who mentioned it, but seems like they might have more interest in Lindholm than Scheifele at this point. So I think those are your most two likely options when it comes to replacing him, unless Austin Matthews hits the market next year. We know Sebastian Aho isn't anymore. He signed an 8-year, $78 million extension with the Hurricanes today. So at this point, I've had some talks with people on Twitter, like, sure, you can wait till next year, but what if you miss out next year? And
You got to do something.
You're trying to get back in the mix. You're struggling to do so. Then you find yourself in a similar spot just a year later. You have to try and get someone now. Like there's no two ways about it. Even if it's another one of the Flame centers and it's Michael Backlund for a couple of years. I like him a lot too. Not as much because he's 34, but he's been a leader there for a while and is a good 3-zone player that can put up a decent amount of points low key. I feel like people don't really talk about him for his scoring, but I want to know where you're at because I kind of go back and forth between Scheifele and Lindholm. I like Lindholm a little more. The attitude with Scheifele at times in the past couple of years, it concerns me a little bit. Not gonna lie, wasn't the best locker room there, partially because of Blake Wheeler as well. Pierre-Luc Dubois, like essentially wanting out in the future from Winnipeg, like right after he got traded, not too long after. How do you feel about the two of them? Because I think those are the two real only options they go after.
I take either one because that was gonna be my question for you. Excuse me. You look at the cap projection, had it on Twitter for the people that saw it, what the Bruins lines look like as of right now without Bergeron, and yeah, you might be able to skate by with the top 6 of Marchand, Zacha, DeBrusk, and then Van Riemsdyk, Cole, and Pastrnak. But once you get past those 6 guys, it is a lot of question marks. And Frederick and Geeky and Lauko and then Lucic, Boquist, and Brown. So I know, I'm sure Lucic probably still has something left in the tank, so I'm not going to knock him too much. Trent Frederick obviously had a very good season last year for the Bruins to step up. But after that, like I said, a lot of question marks. So whatever, I think you tweeted it out, whatever it takes, or somebody tweeted it out, whatever it takes to get one of those 2 guys.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care who it is. You mentioned the questions of the character questions or locker room problems with Scheifele. I feel like that's a guy. Maybe it isn't. I mean, I can't imagine the Bruins locker room stuff and their team morale is going to take a massive dip without Bergeron being there. They still got plenty of leaders. So it's not like that guy's, if you bring him in, he's going to be a problem in the locker room or anything like that. So yeah, I'm fine with whatever guy, because they definitely need something now. Like I said, Bergeron leaving, as we knew it was going to, leaves a massive hole in the middle of this team, in the middle of this lineup. And they're going to have to figure something out as a way to plug it. Unless they want to just go with all these young guys, which they don't see. Again, like they love bringing in their cheap veteran guys to, play the bottom 6. So that's what it is. But I like I said before, I'd like to see them give some of these young guys a chance. Maybe down the line they will, but if they're not going to do that, you got to go out and get somebody that can give you some sort of production in your top 6.
Yeah, now with like leadership and a guy like Scheifele potentially being a tough fit with attitude concerns, you don't have Bergeron and Chara around anymore. This is the first time in a long time you've been without Bergeron and or Chara. Both of them are gone. Krejci's probably gone unless he comes back at Christmas time. You have to really consider fit in the locker room so much more now, because you don't just have the crutch of leaning on guys like Chara and Bergeron and Krejci. It's guys like Marchand and McAvoy and Carlo. I think Jeremy Swayman, however long he's around, will get to that point eventually. Olmark, on more towards the veteran side for goalies in the league. So you have to consider the locker room fit so much more in a different aspect now, and I think Lindholm will fit that better. The good thing I like about Calgary as a partner too is I don't think they will want a goalie, because nobody's going to want Jacob Markstrom's contract. The Bruins probably wouldn't take Dan Vladar back. They'd probably prefer to call up Brendan Bussey if they were to trade a goalie. And I doubt the Bruins are getting Dustin Wolf, stud goalie prospect that is expected to at least be the backup this year for Calgary. And then when you talk about Winnipeg, I imagine a Mark Scheifele deal starts with Jeremy Swayman. So I think that deal might have to get. I think the deal might have to get done with Jeremy Swayman.
Okay.
But there was a report a couple weeks ago that now some people are starting to think that Hellebuyck might start the season with Winnipeg. So how does that affect how they attack trade packages for a guy like Mark Scheifele? We'll see. But I mean,
you got to think they still want a goalie just in case.
Too. Like, yeah, that again, yeah, it comes back to the goalie, I think, for them, because by at least the deadline, Connor Hellebuyck's not going to be a Winnipeg Jet. He might start the season if they have trouble trading him, and that's a guy that we're talking extension with, $9.5 million potentially a year. With Scheifele or Lindholm, the Bruins, I imagine, would have a sign and trade in the works as well. I sure hope so. So I think those are the two most likely options. And then, when it comes back to the leadership, who fills the void? My thought on the captaincy front, and you pointed it out too, is the way McAvoy talked about, taking up the mantle essentially, in that tribute to Bergeron, where a lot of them were getting emotional. Sound like he knows he might be the captain, and why wouldn't he? But you have to wonder about Marchand. I mean, I remember back to when they announced Bergeron as captain, they pranked it and gave it to Marchand first.
That's right. I do remember that. Yep.
I'm cool either way, but as of the press conference today, they don't have a decision made. I'm a little surprised by that, but not like totally. I think it's one of them and nobody else, really. I think it's absolutely going to be one of those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, for obvious reasons, he's been here now the longest out of any Brew, and obviously the veteran guy. So your mind goes to Marchand.
Isn't that fucked up to say?
It is. Yep, it absolutely is. So like, that is crazy. But yeah, like you said, I kind of had that thought process of, if people missed it, he basically, like you said something along the lines of like, thank you for building the culture that you have for the 19 years you were here, and I'm being McAvoy. And I'm going to try my best to keep that going. So like you said, that to me also was like, all right, that kind of alludes that. And I was thinking about it the other day too. I'm like, if you make Marchand the captain, I mean, obviously the last couple of years now, that's not by design or anything, but like you give it a Chara, but you get Bergeron gets it from Chara. Bergeron was a captain for what, a year or two? So do you really want to go through, give it a Marchand this year, then maybe 2 years or a year down the line?
But
you
also
have to change.
at the same time,
not that it matters, but like you get where I'm coming at.
Is it a veteran line of succession until you get to McAvoy? So that way it goes to Marchand, whether he plays 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It's something to monitor. And I think the outside guy is Brandon Carlo, but Brandon Carlo just screams an A guy to me. At this point, Brad Marchand might not even be chomping at the bit to be the captain. Like,
I had a friend of mine say the exact same thing. I was curious.
He knows his role. He's pretty much like especially when it was Bergeron after Chara left. It was like a 1A, 1B captain.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was an obvious. Yep.
Which is not to take anything away from Bergeron's role in the locker room, but I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic. I had someone suggest a 3A scenario. I think they could do that. I don't think they will, though.
I feel like that would be not like a slap in the face, but
it's not a Bruins thing. Yeah, like I just can't see them doing that until, of course, they would do it in this hypothetical scenario.
What are your thoughts on like a dark horse? Like, we kind of briefly talked about this over text, but like I thought maybe Coyle might have an outside shot. I joked to you about Lucic just for like shits and giggles for 1 year, but like you said, there's no way they're going to do that.
Yeah,
Coyle's the other name I've seen.
Coyle, Lucic, Grzelcyk, Carlo, and maybe even Frederick at times.
Grzelcyk's a decent one,
A candidates, guys that rotate through the A a lot. I think obviously the most long-term fit though is Charlie McAvoy, no doubt. Pastrnak, I love Pastrnak, but he's kind of goofy. He's got goofy vibes, assistant captain guy.
I just thought of something
for
now.
His whole career.
To pick your brain on, I wonder, because you brought it up that you said that obviously they haven't made a decision yet in the press conference today. I wonder if maybe they're in the back of their minds, maybe thinking if Krejci comes back, maybe they throw the C his way. Because
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean we talked about it a week ago. I kind of brought it up. The unreliability the last couple of years of like, well, is he going to play here? Is he not? So that's probably not in the cards. But just something maybe to think about, to throw another name in the hat. But I'm with you. Like, McAvoy makes a lot of sense if you want to just go for a guy that you know is going to be here for a long time, instead of just doing every, like I said, 2 years, because you have these veteran guys that are coming towards the end of their careers. But yeah, you're the second person that's brought up that maybe Marchand wouldn't even want to be the captain. So that's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, it is. One thing back to Bergeron I wanted to mention: over a span of 12 seasons from 2011 to now 1,941 Selke ballots were submitted. 1,785 of them, 92%, included Patrice Bergeron. 937, 48% of them had him in first place. Unprecedented dominance. Not sure
He's overrated though.
Yeah, not sure
If
the
you listen
game
to all the
will
Maple
ever-
Leaf fans that you guys get into fights with on Twitter.
Yeah, like it's just so lame. Like I told one of the guys, like, cool, have your opinion, but like jumping right to shit on a guy who, no matter what you think of him, had a pretty awesome career.
Mm-hmm.
Like your first instinct, unless you're just purely trolling, is to like disparage their accomplishments. That's so lame to me.
Exactly.
But I mean, a lot of them are just.
They
can't terrorize them anymore. So.
Exactly. That's it. Also boils down to probably just like jealousy that in our lifespan, the Maple Leafs never had or at least the last half decade, a forward like Patrice Bergeron or the play style like Patrice Bergeron anywhere close. But it also just comes with like, you should, as a sports fan, like, yes, you could probably hate the player. Like you do it with the old Yankees. I did it with Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera. You hate the team they play for, but because they were such class acts, you have to respect what the player did in their career. Like never really did anything wrong on or off the field. So, or on and off, in this case with Bergeron, on and off the ice. But you get what I'm getting at. Like you can hate the guy all you want playing against your team and how much, he scorned you and burned you. But when he retires and has this type of career, you got to give credit where credit's due. I don't care if you hate the player or not.
Yeah, I don't get it. I get it, but I don't. But yeah, man, it's a huge void to fill. How they do it remains to be seen, of course, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Other news. Well, actually, we can get to talking about the lineup. I almost forgot about my ideal lineup with this roster. Includes Charlie Coyle centering the Marchand DeBrusque line to get a righty pivot in there instead of just all lefties.
Okay.
That gives you some options.
That answers my question. I was going to ask you then, because we've seen him not have all that much success up there. So I was curious as to why you had him, but that does make sense in that case.
Yeah, technically you can make that the second line and make something like JVR with Zacha with his Czech buddy Pastrnak. And then you run something like Lauko on the wing or Trent Frederick on the left wing. I'm trying to find the tweet I put up yesterday because I'm trying to blank on the third line here. Frederick with like Geeky and Boqvist, I think could work. I would put Lauko there, but I think Lauko fits on a line with a guy like Milan Lucic better, and you can move him up and down the lineup as the game goes along. Maybe Jakub Lauko gets some net front power play time to see if that works this year. I don't know, just throwing it out there. But right now, like if they don't add a center, I think you can pencil in Frederick or Geeky at third line center. And then in my sense, it would put Lucic, Patrick Brown, or Mark McLaughlin if he pushes for the roster, and you waive a guy like Pat Brown, then Lauko on the left or on the right. I just think Lucic and Lauko, unless Lauko really forces your hand in putting him on the third line, which he absolutely could, I'd be cool with that. I think having them as the Bash Bros on the fourth line, like the Bash Bro of old and the Bash Bro of new potentially, would be really cool. And
like a changing of the guard type of thing.
Could be really like effective as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at. I think the consensus is pretty clear on the defense. Grizzly McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo, and Forbert and Shattenkirk. I think people are kind of underselling the Shattenkirk thing a little bit. I think back on a good team, he could be a really solid third pair defenseman for dirt cheap. And then, barring a trade, you have Ullmark and Swayman. Swayman on a new deal, of course, as your goalie tandem. So right now, with the current cap situation with Bergeron not going to be signing, they got $5.429 million to sign Jeremy Swayman and Trent Frederick, and I think that's ample money.
That should be doable, absolutely.
I think you're looking 3.5 a year on a bridge deal max for Swayman, then looking around $2 million a year on a bridge for Frederick. Just make that work.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be good. I also want to mention too, I think Jesper Boqvist in the right role. I don't know if that's on the fourth line in this team. Rotating in out of the third could be a nice pickup. So I'm interested to see even more now because we're likely not talking about Coyle as his third line center if he plays the third line. We're talking about a guy like Morgan Geekie or outside shot Pavel Zacha if Geekie really crushes it or something. I don't see that happening, but nothing against Geekie. I just think Zacha and Coyle are your top two centers if the season started today.
That would make the most sense, yeah, as of right now, unless, like you said, barring any sort of trade.
On this, are you in the same kind of camp on the forward core? Do you differ on defense at all? I'd be kind of surprised if you did because
no, the defense. I think the defense is set in my mind. Is not a move unless you like were to trade one of them to get a center. Like
Riley Walsh said, talking to the Boston Globe, he's pushing to get to the NHL this year. So Riley Walsh could rotate in and out of that. That
something to look forward to.
Third-rate D spot. So would love it.
Yeah. I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm just looking at it from the on paper standpoint again and seeing like that you need to do some sort of something to get some sort of replacement for Bergeron and via a trade. But again, I don't know what it's going to take. If it's going to take Swayman to get, like you said, Lindholm or Scheifele out, I don't know. Like that might be tough. Again, I've been vocal of wanting to trade one of the goalies for the longest time, but I obviously lean more towards Ullmark. He's not going to get you as much as Swayman would. Yeah. So I don't know, like it's a lame answer to give, but I feel like I'm just kind of in wait and see mode right now to see how they bounce back or how they pivot from a move like this. Again, like the Bruins obviously knew it was coming. I saw people say that video from all the players was probably done right after the playoffs ended. So you knew it was coming down the line. Now, how do they react and what direction do they go in now to try to replace them if they go in one at all, or if they, like we said, they're going to give some of these younger guys or some of these, middling pickups that they had at the start of the offseason, see if they can run with them and if everybody, catches lightning in a bottle here.
Yeah, and I still do think there's a chance Merkulov or Lysell force their way into the roster. I do think there is one outside shot candidate to be traded for at center, and it's Evgeny Kuznetsov. If they could retain a good chunk of that salary. 2 years left, $7.8 million per. Wants a trade out of Washington. Another guy you might have attitude concerns on. Guy surrounded by a lot of Russians for a while. Think he'd be pretty happy. Maybe he's not happy that Dmitry Orlov, his buddy's gone. They're good friends. I don't know what the deal is there. Maybe it's ice time. Who knows? But I'll throw Evgeny Kuznetsov out there too. But I imagine in an ideal world, they would like to send him out west, given the fact they're in the Eastern Conference. So we'll see. How do you feel about Kuznetsov? Are you a Kuznetsov guy?
I couldn't really tell you a lot about the player. So I'm not going to give too strong of a take or not. But if that's a guy that you bring in here and get to work, again, I'm not going to be opposed to that at all. Because I can't stress enough. I think you have to do something or try to do something at least to get some sort of, again, replacement in here for Bergeron. It's obviously going to be a step down, but you got to try to do something.
Yeah, fair enough. And for a team like Washington, which I don't think might not make them a great partner with the Bruins, is they need prospects and picks. And I think other teams can offer better prospects and picks than the Bruins. So that might hurt them in a pursuit for such a player. As we said earlier, Sebastian Aho signs 8 by 78, 9.75 a year with the Hurricanes. I think it's a bit rich. I think he's more of a $9 million guy, maybe 9.25. But when you're talking about a 1C not hitting the UFA market, I think we're overpaying a little bit here. Is worth it. And he is very good. He's really, really good. 3-zone guy, not a glaring weakness. I think they could have done a lot worse. Vince Dunn, some people might have been shocked by him getting $7.35 million a year. I wasn't. He's been on an upward climb the more he's getting more ice time over the years. He's very good. He's an excellent transition defenseman, great modern puck moving type. 7.35 a year on a 4-year deal. I think could end up looking like a steal, especially with the cap going up. I think Vince Dunn is going to continue to get better, especially in a good Seattle system. Eetu Luostarinen, an underrated middle six center, in my opinion, signs a 3-year, $9 million extension with Florida. Pretty nice deal for him. I think it's pretty fair. And Ilya Samsonov and Philip Kurashev get their arbitration awards. Samsonov will hit UFA next year. He gets a 1-year, $3.55 million deal. And Kurashev gets a 2-year, $2.25 million per deal with the Blackhawks. And yeah, those are just some extra NHL notes. We want to wish Bergeron an adieu as
much as it stinks to say that, but
as much as it stinks. And, he's got a bigger family now, a newborn to raise. So best of luck to him in his next endeavor. We're going to miss him very much. I mean, a guy that's practically been a Bruin our whole lives. It hurts.
Mhm.
Will he join the team in some capacity down the road? I think it's possible.
He was asked
But-
about that today, and I think specifically on the coaching side of things, and he said as of right now, kind of gave the Dustin Pedroia when he walked away, was like, I want to be with my kids. I want to.
Yeah,
I think he made the joke like
That's a
being
few
Uber to
years
my
down the road.
family. So yeah, exactly.
I think him and Chara would do it together. If there
Oh,
was a role for both of
absolutely.
them at the
Yeah.
same time, same
Yep.
off season. The Bruins do need an assistant coach with John Gruden. I think he took the Marlies job. I don't think Bergeron would want to be a defenseman coach like John
Probably not.
Gruden was, but we'll see how they
No,
fill
he's
that.
one of the
void.
best, if not the best, defensive forward in the history of the game.
Yeah.
So that
We'll just
Might
we'll
not
just
be the
have
worst thing.
Bergeron eventually be the Selke coordinator. He'll take
There
the
you go.
best
Yeah.
defensive forwards on the team and turn them into Selke contenders every year.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I really am truly gonna miss Bergeron. It's gonna be
Mhm.
weird watching them without him being in the Garden, not watching him come out of the tunnel. He's been here forever. He's a legend. He's brought us Stanley Cup and a lot of joy, and played through injury, shown immeasurable class and grace in the way he played the game, the way he carried himself, way he was involved in the community and with his teammates, and with charitable endeavors. Like the list goes on. He just put on a masterclass in pretty much every way in his whole career.
Mhm.
And we are going to miss him, and we wish him the best because he
Absolutely.
deserves it.
Yep.
Because he is a legend, a king, Saint Patrice. One of the greatest Bruins ever, no doubter to the rafters, as Cam Neely reinforced, as if we needed any reinforcement. Thank you, Patrice Bergeron, or as the Bruins have been saying, merci,
Merci.
Bergie. So,
Yep.
hope he has a wonderful post-playing days life with his kids, his family of 4, and his wife, extended family and stuff like that. Because, like I said, he deserves it.
Mhm.
And some time with his dad as well. Because I imagine he's going through a lot. So can't really blame him. Love him. Gonna miss him. Jaylen Brown.
This is where the news
Switches the
takes a
news
turn.
cycle
It
a
starts
little.
to go up a little bit.
Switches the news cycle,
Yep.
depending on how you feel. At the very least, you got to be somewhat happy that,
Mhm.
they have their guys locked up. Tatum not as long, but Tatum will get the bag eventually too. Don't worry about that.
Probably next
Um,
offseason.
Probably next offseason. Jaylen Brown, the $304 million man.
Mhm.
I just want to say to the haters from day one who doubted him, he's the richest man in the NBA. In
He
terms
is,
of
and that
total
is
contract dollars.
Yep, that is not the greatest thing to hear because as
The
people
haters are
will and
sick.
they're furious, which it's hilarious to me. I had this discussion with my dad and this argument with my dad last night that he's on the big side of like, oh, athletes make way too much money. And again, I always try to remind him this is what the market is for these type of players.
There's gonna be tons of deals like this now.
Like I said, as I told him, I go, Jaylen Brown's the highest paid player in the NBA for now until Luka Doncic needs a contract or
till
Jason
6
Tatum
months.
next offseason needs exactly. He's not going to be the highest paid player for long. Let's not get our, panties in a twist. All the people, like you said, that are pissed about this deal. Look, we talked about it all offseason leading up to it. He chose to have his worst game of his career at the worst possible time, and it makes this contract look horrible. But you know what type of player Jaylen Brown is. You know what he brings to the table. Team first guy. You can't hate it because it was a deal that had to get done. Like you can't afford to lose this guy or have him potentially walk away for nothing. This is a deal you had to make. You weren't going to get him cheap, especially
It's
after
a
he
stars
made
league.
Exactly. Especially after you made the all NBA team too. You knew a massive extension was coming. The big thing too, Adam Himmelsbach had this as well, saying according to a league source, Jaylen Brown's 5-year Supermax extension does not include a 5th-year player option. It does include a trade kicker. I didn't know what a trade kicker was. I don't know if you did or not. I was just going to say you're not as big as an NBA fan as I am, so you probably did not. So I had to look it up. And for the people that are like the two of us that don't know what a trade kicker is or what it implies, this is from a fan-sided article. I think talking about Ben Simmons' extension when he did his, he had a trade kicker, I believe, in his as well. But it says, quote, plainly and simply, a player with a trade kicker gets more money if he's dealt to a new team. A move involving a player with a trade kicker stands to impact the return his current team gets in a trade too. For a team to give someone a trade kicker, it's a gesture to show that player to keep him for the duration of the deal. A trade kicker functions like a no trade clause on some level. It's a no lose proposition for the player and the team creates some financial consequences if they do trade him, but beyond the percentage, the bonus is all trade kickers are not necessarily created equal. So that's kind of got some people thinking, okay, well, Jaylen Brown's got a trade kicker. Does this mean the Celtics are going to, live by that and say we're not going to trade you at any point? Or does that kind of give Jaylen Brown some more leverage if, like stars do in the NBA, if things start to go sour a little, down the line into this contract, 2 or 3 years in, hey, I want out, trade me because now I'm going to make even more money if you do. So that's kind of got some people wondering what's going to be down the line. But let's live in the present here, people. The Celtics have Jaylen Brown locked up, one of their core players, the second part of their big three now with Tatum and Porzingis. Like I said, people are just going to complain. It's a deal that had to get done. I don't hate it. I'm sure you don't hate it either. You weren't realistically going to find any sort of trade if you moved Jaylen Brown that was going to be worth the return, unless you were getting a boatload of like first round picks and, a young star player, but there aren't, a ton of those in the league that, live up to Jaylen Brown's level. So I like it. Again, it shows they're committed to the player, at least for now. It keeps the championship window open as of now. And like I said, I don't know how you can't be happy just for the guy in general, like from getting booed. I saw a tweet the other night from getting booed on draft night for the people that didn't want Jaylen Brown to now, as of now, like you said, the highest paid player in the NBA. Like you got to at least be happy for the guy in that sense.
Yeah. And it all comes back to me, like for people who are upset for whatever reason, it comes down to it's a stars league and you couldn't let him go for nothing.
Exactly.
At the very least, you didn't let him go for nothing. That was the ultimate catastrophe scenario. And deals like this are going to happen. There's going to be deals that are over $300 million. You could absolutely make the case that they're going to age poorly. You're going to look at this in a year and be like, okay, it's in a crowded cluster of them. We'll see how they age. And at the end of the day, there's no hard salary cap in the NBA.
You got all those apron things to worry about and everything that might become a problem down the line. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
There's so many factors. And if, God forbid, you have to trade the guy, you can. Unless he completely falls off a cliff skill-wise, you'll be able to trade him if you need to. It'll be hard, but it won't be the only, $60, $70 million a year contract that people are trying to trade. It's going to become a norm. To what extent, we don't know yet, but I think this could have gone so much worse.
Absolutely.
And in present day, it keeps the Celtics as a contender. And that's what matters the most. Because it's that championship's been elusive these last few years. You are a better team with Jaylen Brown. Your odds are not going to get better without Jaylen Brown long term. Unless Brad Stevens put on a masterclass to replace him, which is easier said than done.
Absolutely, yeah.
Jaylen Brown is a core member of this team, especially after trading Marcus Smart. You need a guy like him around, and your title chances are better off with him here.
Would not agree more.
Dude, he's so hard to dislike in terms of his off the court involvement. He really has taken an investment in the community and the youth. It's a guy that you should be happy to have as a leader. Yeah, I mean, even just the way he signed the extension, I can't remember what the I forgot to look it up and put it in here, the cause that he was doing today, but he basically he put off the extension was obviously yesterday. We put off signing it today for the charity thing, or I can't remember, the community thing he was doing today. So that was just cool to see too. And he, again, on the character of Jaylen Brown, this isn't a guy that, as we've seen with players before, that gets this bag and then just goes, all right, I'm going to F off and just kind of my game's going to decline. I'm not going to get any better. The guy, we talked about it after game 7 against Miami. You could obviously see the guy was upset for not being able to pull through it. He said it himself. He let people down. He's not going to come out this upcoming season and not work on, obviously, is the people, the joke. Okay, you got your money, now go work on your left hand. He's going to come out. He's going to be better. I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. And again, people will just get all caught up on the fact that he's the highest paid player. Probably shouldn't be, but as we said, and can't stress enough, that this is where the NBA is at right now. So for the people that want to complain about that, look at the league and complain about the league. Times are changing.
Absolutely. And just to piss those people off even more, if they are listening, Front Office Sports had the breakdown for how crazy it is. In 2024, 2025, he will make over $52.3 million in 2025, 2026. He'll make over $56.5 million in 26, 27. just under 61 million in 2027-2028 season. He makes just under 65 million. And then in the 2028-2029 season, he is making just over $69.1 million. So
yeah,
pretty nice little pay raise for Jaylen Brown.
yeah,
Again, well-deserved because he has put in the effort and the time and has grown himself into a pretty nice player in this league.
yeah.
And again, you're excited to see where a full year of him and Tatum as the, the two real leaders of this team. Because again, that's where I think we're excited to see them both step into, super big time leader roles with, Marcus Smart being gone and, transitioning to the two J's as being the full-time leaders of the team. I'm excited to see where it goes. And like you said too, that you are a much better team and your championship window is open for much longer with him here rather than without him here.
Undoubtedly. And he's been hanging out with my boy, Cousin Stiz lately. So shout out to Cousin Stiz. He's dropping a new song on Tuesday. Very excited.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, he's a foundational piece. You had to keep him around. The financials aren't lovely, but it's just how the league's gonna go. We got to deal with it.
Yep.
And yeah, the Celtics are in a good spot. This is their biggest priority these last few weeks, is nailing this down. There's been plenty of negotiations from the sound of things, and they got it done. So now it's on the next season. Lock it in, and we'll see where it goes, because this is a damn good team still, and Jaylen Brown makes it better. That's undeniable.
Absolutely.
So, on to the Red Sox.
This
is another bit of news we didn't have.
Pulled the rug out from under us and had the best news of the day, depending on how you look at the player. I can't imagine there were a lot of Red Sox fans that were upset about this.
I gotta be honest. I don't know how they got this much.
I don't either. That's why I say there's people that are upset about trading Kike Hernandez. The fact that you were able to get two, not bona fide because only one guy's been in the majors, but two actual relievers that have had some success at the minor league level. For Kike Hernandez, who's been stat-wise arguably the worst player in baseball, and that's not an understatement. You should be jumping for joy.
They got Nick Robertson from the Leafs.
Yeah.
High in masterclass.
Absolutely.
But this deal, I don't understand it. This Hagenman kid is really good, and from the looks of it, and Nick Robinson has played MLB games.
Has not had a ton of success, but has not played a lot.
I gotta
of
be honest.
Games, no.
You can't complain about this deal.
No.
What is there to complain about?
No, because just to start it off, the clock was ticking obviously on this. You had Pablo Reyes get activated, I think, on Monday or on Sunday or whatever day it was. So you needed to make a roster spot for him, and they sent down a pitcher. So it's okay, you kick the can down the road a little further. You still have, at the time, obviously, Kike, Reyes, Arroyo, Yu Chang for 1 to 2 positions, depending on who you put at short or second base. You have Trevor Story, who's ramping up his rehab assignment. He's going to DH, I think, tonight.
Yu Chang did a 2-run double of the game I was at last week when there was
a
monsoon.
He's starting to
ran to my Uber in a monsoon. My shoes were.
That's right. That was the slip and slide. Fenway got exposed for not having any sort of drainage system and being the 100-plus-year-old ballpark that it was. You were unfortunately at that game.
I was talking to my roommate who was listening to this. I was like, it's gonna rain. We got to really map this out. Is it worth it? And no matter what we did, there was no forecasting for a monsoon.
No.
I was a little worried. I was like, do we want to go if it's going to get rained out at 8:30? We got to think about this. I ended up going. It was a solid game to start. We saw you hit a 2-run double. Didn't expect that.
Yep.
Unfortunately, saw Brendan Nimmo hit a home run. It was a solid game. Got rained out. And then there was a monsoon. So that was fun.
Would you have been able to, would you have been able to go to the first game of the doubleheader on, what was that, Sunday? Saturday they had that? Was a ticket.
I was seeing Oppenheimer and the theatrical re-release of Toy Story that day. So
that's a hell of a combination.
That's a doubleheader.
Totally ends of the spectrum.
Tired Barbenheimer, wired Oppenheimer, Toy Story.
There you go.
Toy Story is an iconic movie, and I was too young to have seen it in theaters. I think it actually came out in 95, so I wasn't alive.
I wasn't even born yet. Yep.
Yeah, I think 2 came out in 97, 1 in 95. I could be wrong. But yeah, that's where I was at as we get on this little tangent. Back to the Kike trade, though. There's nothing to complain.
Can't be mad about it. No,
you get
again, it was a move you had to make too.
Shrewd move. This is the definition of a shrewd, high and bloom. You can't love everything he does, but every once in a while he makes these shrewd little moves that make you think and pique your interest. And It works for me in every way. I have zero complaints.
No, like I said, I don't know how you can unless you just said Kike Hernandez lover and you're still living in the postseason of 2021 where he turned into Barry Bonds for a couple weeks stretch. Like this is again a move that had to be made, and again the fact that you were able to get something, especially for your big league roster. I think Nick Robertson is the one that's on it right now. He's been one of this. Some Red Sox stats. Nick Robertson's been one of the best relievers in all of AAA baseball this year. He was on LA's midseason BA top 30, which is obviously the prospects, 25th prospect in the Dodgers organization as a 6'6" right-hander that has a 38% strikeout percentage, a 17% swing and miss on strikes percentage, and an 81% contact on zone swings, plus a 50% ground ball percentage. Again, so all advanced stats. If you're people that are into that, those are all pretty good numbers. 27 games, a 2.54 ERA in the minors, 42 Ks, 9 walks. Again, FIP is what a lot of people read into when it comes to talking about how good a player is, a 2.95. MLB has not had a ton of success, but hasn't had a ton of innings. 9 games, 0-1 with a 6.10 ERA, 10 in the third innings of work, 13 Ks, 4 walks, and a 3.19 FIP. But again, you're getting a reliever, you're getting an arm for Kike Hernandez, the other guy that you were high on, Justin Hagenman. 25 games in the minors, 5 starts. So he's pretty versatile as the Red Sox like. 4-0, a 2.78 ERA and 55 innings of work, 60 Ks, 11 walks, which is a good number there in 55 innings of work.
It's a great ratio.
Yeah. Comes out to a 107 whip and a 488 FIP or FIP for the people that, again, read into it. Red Sox also had to eat $2.5 million of the remaining 3.6 on Kike's contract. Again, who cares?
Yeah,
if you have to eat
John
money,
Henry does. That's all that matters.
Exactly. He's probably kicking himself right now. But yeah,
$2.5 million out of my billions. Oh.
Yeah, how are we going to pay for all those renovations around Fenway Park? And we need new drainage systems now, as last week showed.
How would you give me $2.5 million, John Henry? You fuck.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, even if you want to defend Kike Hernandez and like if you're mad at the Red Sox for trading him, which again, if you are, you're delusional. But they could have sent him to the East Bumfuck out there somewhere. They sent him to the Dodgers where he's familiar. I don't know if you saw the video on Twitter that's been going around. First time back in the clubhouse, he's dancing, having the time of his life. So he's happy to be there. They didn't put him in a bad situation. So
golden retriever, he'll be fine anywhere.
Exactly.
He goes to Oakland, or the freaking Angels.
But yeah, like I said, again, this is a move that had to be made. You have 4 or 5 guys for 2 positions that needed to be moved. They weren't going to DFA him, as Chris Cotillo had. He had the quote, there was no internal conversations about DFA and Kike as of the All-Star break. But like I said, this broke pretty quick. The Athletics, Fabian Ardai, I believe on Monday, had the report out there that the Dodgers were considering a reunion with them. That obviously happens. And again, the Red Sox, I think, end up doing pretty well. They end up saving some money too, or maybe they go out and make another move because there are some other rumblings that are on the horizon. This was from, again, just kind of grouped all these tweets together. Sean McAdam had the Braves have expressed interest in Adam Duvall. And then Jeff Passan had the Red Sox are going to add at the trade deadline and will likely be getting an arm in the coming week. Mark Feinsand had the potential fits for the Red Sox at the deadline include Tony Kemp of the Athletics, Reynaldo Lopez of the White Sox, Jordan Montgomery of the Cardinals, and one familiar face in Eduardo Rodriguez, currently of the Detroit Tigers. Any thought? Well, I'm going to get into these a little more in depth, but any initial thoughts on this, the Duvall stuff, where the Red Sox are heading deadline wise, or any of those names I mentioned?
I would prefer to keep Adam Duvall.
I think trading Kike makes that a little easier.
Yeah, that too. The only guy I really like about the Feinsand from the names Feinsand mentioned is Jordan Montgomery. You're not big on bringing Erod back? No, like he's got a fairly pricey contract. He's had a really good year, but from last I saw at least, I don't know. I don't know if you bring Erod back. I don't know if it's just me, if it's just a gut feeling type of thing or what, but I can't really put my finger on it.
No, see,
I also want Blake Snell.
Yeah, he's not getting moved. I think the Padres came out either yesterday or Monday and said they're probably not going to move him or Hader. Right. So that I wanted Snell too, but yeah,
I think Montgomery would be cheaper and he's a solid player from what I've gathered. I'm on the Montgomery train. I like Montgomery. I like keeping Duvall. Erod, like I'm not going to be mad if they trade for Erod, but like
I'm glad you brought up the point. Sorry to cut you off because I wanted to get this before I forgot about it. That you said that you really couldn't put your finger on why you don't want Eduardo Rodriguez back. I felt the same way putting the outline together today. I'm like, like he obviously contributed to the Red Sox quite a bit, obviously when they acquired him, and then obviously in that World Series run. But I same thing. I don't know why I just don't want a second go around of hero, because I feel like we saw times where he was really, really good. It's like, okay, this guy looks dominant. And then there's other games.
Health issues, but
yeah, that too.
The pitching name outside of Montgomery that I like the most, and the guy's popped around a lot of places, but I think a market, you could pick this apart depending on what you think of how he did in certain markets in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I think Marcus Stroman could handle Boston like no problem and be pretty good here.
I'm on the fence about that because he loves getting into it with fans on Twitter and coming at the media. So I don't know if Boston would be the best place for him.
I don't know,
like,
man. I think
obviously, I mean, he was able to survive New York. So
he goes at it with people, but like he's not like, it's not because he's like fragile.
He's not a head case. Yeah.
I think it's just he's just a kind of a psycho competitiveness wise.
Kind
of like in a similar vein to Nick Pivetta, but not in a similar vein at the same time, but like kind of that like psycho competitiveness factor.
Yep.
I think Marcus Stroman could be fine here. That's a guy I'm very intrigued about.
I'd like him too. I just for some as I'll get into, because I have some predictions as I've done the last couple of years when we do deadline stuff previews. I have him going to another AL East team. But I wanted to really quickly run through kind of my thought process on the four names mentioned. Erod, I'm with you. Like, I'm on the fence. I wouldn't hate him coming back. I wouldn't necessarily like it with other options out there. Like you said, it is going to be pricey. $14 million owed this year, $18 million next year, $16 million in 2025. 15 million in 2026. I believe he has a player option, so he could opt out at the either end of this year or the end of next year if he doesn't get traded and doesn't want to be here. But he does fit the bill, Heimblum, because of course he's not just looking at this year; he's always looking towards the future with these Red Sox teams. Apparently, had a comment the other day, was asked about what their direction is going to be at the deadline or something along the lines of it. And he said the Red Sox, or he wants to prioritize trading for guys that have more years of control rather than just a 1-year rental type of guy, like a guy like Jordan Montgomery. Comes into Ronaldo Lopez, same thing. They're both free agents at the end of this season. So maybe Erod is that guy they're looking at, because Dylan Cease is apparently off the board. The White Sox said they've declined all calls on him. Who was the other name? There was another pitcher. Snell's up at the end of the year, so it wasn't him. I'm drawing a blank on the other guy with some tenure that might be available. But Erod fits that bill. Like I said, wouldn't hate it, wouldn't necessarily like it. Obviously, we know what he can do. He's had plenty of success here. So wouldn't be the worst thing to bring him back. But again, I think there are better options. I'm with you. I prefer Jordan Montgomery, even if it is just that 1-year rental thing. We saw what he did with a change of scenery at the trade deadline last year, went off and arguably was the Cardinals' best pitcher. This year, he's been okay, 20 games, 6-8 with a 3.37 ERA, but we know he does have success in the American League and the American League East in particular with those years with the Yankees. You need an innings eater at the back of the rotation. I know you are getting guys like Chris Sale back, but it doesn't help, or doesn't hurt rather, to have just another guy that can obviously fill into rotation, eat some innings, make some starts. Jordan Montgomery would be that guy. Lopez is an interesting. Go ahead.
Did you see who the Guardians got back for Rosario?
No, I forgot to mention that there was a trade that broke right before we jumped on that nixed one of my trade predictions. But who?
Noah Syndergaard is going to the Guardians.
So is it a 1-for-1 then?
Yes. That's what it looks like.
That's bizarre.
So that makes me think about a certain Guardians pitcher that they may be more willing to move, and
who would that be
of interest to the Red Sox? And that would be one Shane Bieber. Do you think this makes them more willing to trade him with a top of the rotation right-hander?
Nope.
Or this has no effect on it?
No effect, because he is on the 60-day. He was transferred to the 60-day injured list, so he is.
Oh, he's hurt.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Didn't know that.
With some sort of either a lat strain or something.
This is why I appreciate your knowledge of these things.
I initially had him in because, like I said, I have a top 10 players that I believe won't be traded and 10-ish or so players that will. I had him originally in the top 10 that won't be moved, but I thought that was kind of cheating because I can't imagine the Guardians are going to trade a guy that's on the 60-day injured list unless a team wants to, again, is looking towards the future and maybe thinks they can re-sign him. I can't remember what his contract situation is. But yeah, I think any chance of him getting traded is off the table, no matter who the Guardians get. But that is weird that it is a 1-for-1 Ahmed Rosario for Noah Syndergaard, because that to me would have signified that the Guardians, even though they're like 3 or 4 games out of the division, would be selling, because he's a pretty solid piece of that offense. a top of the order bat. So that is interesting to me. Interesting too that the Dodgers double up on right-handed kind of middle infielders, utility guys. Because I think Rosario can play some outfield. Getting Kike and now getting him, but a solid trade all around. The Guardians obviously think they need some more pitching help, and Syndergaard can pitch out of the bullpen, can start for them. So that's not a terrible trade by any means.
No, yeah, I was just surprised to see it as a one.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say
Syndergaard's on the move like once a year now.
It's pretty much. Adam Duvall could be too if the Red Sox want to trade him, which I never understand that. Well, the Braves, it would be, I think, the third time. I'm trying to find it here. I had it. Third time he's been traded in his career. I think this would be the third time he was traded, or fourth time traded at the deadline. Third time to the Braves. He was traded in 2015 from the Giants with Giants and Reds deal. Mike Leake was traded to the Reds, or traded to the Giants, I believe. Kerry Mella and Adam Duvall went to the Reds, or vice versa. I can't remember exactly how that deal went down. 2018, a deal was with the Reds because I have it in the next thing. Duvall was traded for Lucas Sims, Matt Whistler, and an outfield prospect, and Preston Tucker to the Braves. And then 2021, he was traded from the Marlins back to the Braves for straight up the number 16 prospect in the Braves organization, Alex Jackson. So if I was Adam Duvall, I'd be going to the Red Sox office being like, hey, could you guys just hold on to me? Because I'm tired of getting traded at the deadline.
Yeah.
And if he was traded to the Braves, I'd be like, could you guys just re-sign me at the end of the offseason instead of having me go somewhere else and then getting re-upped halfway through the year? But
if you're the Red Sox and you're making a push now, or at least you're going to try to over the next few weeks, don't you want a guy like Duvall?
You would think, a nice right-handed bat in the middle, veteran guy.
He hasn't had a full chance to prove himself with that injury for a while. Like,
he's starting to come around a little bit too. He struggled after.
You can trade. You don't have to trade. He falls into that pile for me.
Yeah, like I said, I think I thought they were just going to be loyal to Kike all season and not trade him, not DFA him. I thought if you were going to trade a right-handed bat at the deadline, it was going to be Duvall because he'd probably get you more. But now that Hernandez is gone, you still have a little bit of a logjam in the outfield. Like I want Duran playing pretty much every day. I don't really care about the splits with him. Verdugo starting to struggle, or has been struggling. You hope he comes out of it. But with him scuffling, I think that obviously makes a decision of keeping Duvall a little easier. Obviously, the other guy we didn't talk about was Tony Kemp. Can't play the outfield, can play second base. There were reports that the Red Sox maybe wanted a left-handed infielder, which I don't understand because as soon as Trevor Story comes back, you're going to have a logjam again at the position. Like fellow people talking about that too, that are like, oh, what do you do if, when Story comes back, who do you move? Like it's Yu Chang is the easiest decision. You DFA him.
Yeah.
I know people like his defense, but I don't know how much you can keep a guy that's batting 170 around much longer. And Reyes is back. I like him better than Chang anyway. And he's more versatile too. So the Tony Kemp one doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That just would scream the typical meh kind of minor Heim Bloom move where you get a guy just to kind of get a guy. So I'm out on that one. I don't really care about getting a left-handed bat. Like I think as soon as you bring Story back, your infield is set for the most part. But and then Lopez, go ahead real quick because I was going to bring up Lopez to end it.
Before you get more in depth, if you have more thoughts on the trades that could happen. One, do you think Bobby Dahlbeck is a member of the Red Sox organization by the time the trade deadline closes? And I will give my prediction. I will say a guy you sold me on, Jonathan India and Jordan Montgomery by the end of the trade deadline are Boston Red Sox.
Jonathan India would be a big move, and I wouldn't hate it. But again, it would clog up. It wouldn't clog up your infield because it would make up if you want to go bold, absolutely.
You sold
and again,
me on Jonathan India, and I watched him live, so I know ball about Jonathan.
There you go. That just real quick on that too. It's I get that the Reds are coming from the same thing as we have a logjam at the infield position with all these young kids that are coming up. But Jonathan India is the most proven infielder outside of Joey Votto on that team. I don't know why you'd want to move on from him. A guy that's won a Rookie of the Year. He's been pretty consistent. He plays pretty much every game. I think he's played in every game that the Reds have played in this season.
I didn't realize he was as good as you said he was.
He's
kind of okay.
He's a decent little player. Like I was looking again the other day, like I thought he had like higher average type of thing. But again, he shows up every day, competes, goes out there, has big hits from time to time. So I don't know why the Reds would want to dangle him maybe outside of a prospect. Because again, there is that, known commodity in India compared to a prospect you don't know about. But I think if there's a trade to be made, talking about Eduardo Rodriguez, I'm going to spoil one of my guys that I think will definitely be moved. I think you could maybe be looking at, because the Reds obviously want controllable pitching. Like same thing you saw tonight with the Dodgers and the Guardians, a 1-for-1 India for Rodriguez swap. He goes to the Reds, India goes to the Tigers. Yeah, but
For Syndergaard.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, so that was kind of one of my bigger ones. I think if Erod gets moved, the other sneaky pick too I have is back to Baltimore. That'd be kind of cool to see him kind of come full circle. But again, with the report that the Red Sox want controllability, wouldn't necessarily be surprised if he ends up back here, which would not be the worst thing, but also wouldn't be the best thing.
Speaking of Baltimore,
Did they make another trade
last week?
Oh,
they're in the mix on Shohei Ohtani. I threw it out there.
they did. Yeah, they're doing their due diligence. Them and the Marlins, I think.
Baltimore Orioles, there are so many reasons to trade for Shohei Ohtani. You're on the come up. Mm-hmm. You've acquired tons of good players on your MLB roster, and I assume from what I've heard, they've got a good amount of them in the minor system as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And every year for so long, this division has been dominated by, it's the Rays division, it's the Red Sox, the Yankees for so long, more so the Red Sox and the Yankees, of course. Why not just swing for the fences? Do you want him as a rental if you're a team like the Orioles? I don't know, but if you have confidence that you can sign him, you should. I mean, there's rumblings that he wants to play long-term out west.
Stay on the West Coast, that is. Yep.
But if you're the Orioles, I think you should be all over him. And the Diamondbacks, too, they're in the mix, too. You're the Arizona Diamondbacks. If you can get a franchise player, maybe a guy who can become the greatest baseball player ever might already be, you should be all over Shohei Ohtani.
The Diamondbacks would be an interesting one because obviously it fits. It's not as obviously far west as the LAs of the world. But you get him, you put him in there as a 1-2 punch with Zach Gallen. The Diamondbacks offense has been good with Corbin Carroll as a young stud, and Ketel Marte's had a great season. That would be a pretty dynamic team.
Think of Arizona too. The Cardinals suck. The Coyotes play in a college rink and they suck. Even though they might sign.
That would, yeah.
I forgot to mention the hockey segment. They might get Logan Cooley to decide against going to Minnesota and sign with the Coyotes. That would be big for them. You've got the Cardinals. You've got the Coyotes. You got the Diamondbacks who are kind of on the upswing, but whatever. And who the hell else? Who's the other?
The Suns are their biggest draw right now.
The Suns, yeah. I was thinking an Arizona team in the NBA, but I didn't make the connection to Phoenix. All you have is the Suns. If you're a team like Arizona and you potentially have a once in a lifetime opportunity to trade for a guy that could become the greatest player ever, you should do it.
Baltimore would be so much fun though too. That would put them over the top of the American League.
Even that uniform,
it'd be weird to see
great uniform.
Yeah,
great. Maybe my favorite uniform in the MLB is the Orioles.
It is a good uniform.
Besides the A's. The A's suck, but the A's best hat.
That's got the one thing they got going for them. Yep, it's a uniform.
Yes. Oh, the hat is perfect in every way. The logo, great. I mean, it's going to change when they go to Vegas, but it's really going to be fascinating to see how the Ohtani thing shakes out, because whether he's rental or not, he's going to get $600 million. The return is going to be ridiculous. Not involving first round picks like Colin Cowherd thought.
Yeah.
He's a fucking idiot.
Yep.
Come on. I know baseball isn't your thing, but
I feel like that's
picks in baseball. Dude,
I feel like that's a well-known thing.
Fact.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That is the only sport
that was crazy to
Big
me.
Four where you can't I don't know if you can trade. You can't trade draft picks in soccer, and there is no draft in soccer. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Don't think you can do that now.
So I just had my Colin Cowherd moment there, but yeah, I mean that's well known. That out of the four,
that's what they'll be saying next. They'll be saying if Mbappe was gonna have his pick of teams before he's getting paid $1.1 billion. Yeah.
Did you see he turned down $776 million today? I know we're not a big soccer podcast. I'm pretty sure I saw a tweet right before we jumped on that he was going to decline the $776 million. People got a problem with Jaylen Brown's contract.
$32 million transfer fee. That's over $1 billion
for 1 year. Just looking at that on paper, 1 year for 776.
4 years old.
You are set for $1 billion lifetimes.
You are set for generations.
Yeah, your kids are going to be phenomenally well off.
A little tangent there, but a funny one.
Yeah, for the people that are like, why don't they ever talk soccer? There you go. We did a whole minute on soccer.
That's our soccer for the next 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Until the World Cup.
I was going to say the year, but yeah, that's even better. So yeah, as we kind of alluded to, I have a top 10 list of guys that I don't think will be traded, and I think definitely will be traded. That's more than 10-ish because I kind of cheated. This one's more than 10-ish too. We'll start with the number 10, and it's any big time Yankee, aka Gleyber Torres, Giancarlo Stanton, because the Yankees are stupid. And as I saw on Twitter today, they themselves don't really know what direction they want to go in at the trade deadline. There were reports a couple weeks ago or last week that said they maybe want to add a catcher, maybe want to add an outfielder. They're on the verge. I don't know if they're beating the Mets tonight or if that game started off yet, but they lost last night. They're in last place again in the American League East, falling further and further out of the wild card spot. They're not going to get to the division. I think they're getting Judge back on Friday, so maybe that'll change some things around. But the Yankees need to pick a lane. They're not going to pick the right one. They're not going to blow it up. They're not going to trade off pieces. So I don't think any big time. They'll probably be buyers, sitting in last place, which I feel like Yankees fans at this point want to see them trade some guys off and make some changes and fire some people. But they're the Yankees. They won't do that. They don't do that. So I think anybody of value, there aren't many guys in the Yankees that are worth anything as of right now, in my opinion. I don't know if you feel differently. I think the Yankees either buy or they're probably going to stand pat, which would be a very bizarre and stupid move if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, fair enough. Number 9, this one may be cheating a little bit because as we know, the Red Sox are going to be buyers. So it would make a lot of sense to trade James Paxton off the team. I think Ken Rosenthal had the report to her the other day that even though he is going to be probably a pretty hot commodity, the Red Sox will most likely not be trading him because of where they are in the trade deadline and at the position in the standings. That makes sense. Cardinals, will they sell? Will they won't they type of thing? I thought I saw a report that said they're not going to move any other, bigger name guys. So I think Paul Goldschmidt stays there. Luis Robert of the White Sox, I think he stays put, even though he'd probably garner some interest. What's up?
It's Luis Robert?
Yep. I think it changes every year. It changes.
It's one of those names. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. Because I think when he started in the league, it was Robert. Then a year in, he was like, I want to be Robert. And then I think now it's back to Robert.
Sounds worse. No
it does.
Offense, if that's how it is. But Luis Robert rules off the tongue.
It does. Number 6 for me, an interesting one. The Pittsburgh Pirates would probably be sellers at the deadline. They usually are. Andrew McCutchen would probably get a decent amount of teams interested. Veteran guy, has been to the playoffs, has had success, but I'm pretty sure he's at this point where he wants to maybe end his career there. And I think there were reports earlier in the month or a couple weeks ago that said he is most likely going to stay put in Pittsburgh. One of the guys that will not move. So that would make sense there. There are reports that Wilson Contreras of the Cardinals is on the trade block, which is kind of crazy.
Is this his first season on the Cardinals?
First year of a 5-year, I think $85.5 million contract or whatever he signed for. And I think we talked about it at the start of the year. He was, I think, a lot of the blame, wrongfully so, at the Cardinals for their struggles at the start of the year. I think they put some blame on the way he called games and stuff, which it's like, all right, if all your pitching success was based on Yadier Molina, you're kind of pathetic of a baseball team. Yeah. Like you lose one guy and the whole operation goes south.
So they were doing hire Yadi.
Exactly. Yeah. Make him the pitching coach if it's that bad. I just don't think, too, you're going to be able to find a trade partner. I think there'll be teams that are in on catchers, as we'll get to, on guys that I think will be moved. But I don't know how easy it's going to be to move a guy that still has 4 years left. Like I said, of a big contract that he signed just this previous offseason. So he's probably a guy that gets dealt in the offseason, if I had to guess. Sticking with the Cardinals, I don't think Nolan Arenado goes anywhere. Like I said, I think there was a report that said him and Goldschmidt are probably going to stay. Justin Verlander for the Mets. I feel like the Mets might fall into the same category of, are we going to buy? Are we going to sell? Are we still in this thing? And again, he's making, I think, like $43 million this year and next. So that's going to be a tough contract to move as well. But crazy things have happened.
I saw some people saying they think he'd go back to the Astros.
I did see that. I saw somebody say the Red Sox should make a run. It was a Red Sox writer.
All set.
Yeah, exactly. I like Justin Verlander, but not at this point, not for that money. Same thing with Max Scherzer. If I had to pick one of the two, though, I think Scherzer probably goes. He's the free agent at the end of the year, so that pill's easier to swallow.
I think if you're looking for a rental, it's Max Scherzer. One of the guys, spoiler, that you're going to get to that I would love if they could get him long term is Juan Soto.
Yep, but as the Padres said, their big three.
Unfortunate, very unfortunate.
They would get it. I mean, they get a lot back for Soto, 100%. They get a decent haul back for Snell and Hader as well. But I'm surprised they, out of the three of them, like Hader out of the three would be the one I'd look to move, just because I think you could probably get.
He's the head case too, right? He's the guy's a little wild off the field. Or am I mixing him up with someone else?
I don't know.
I'm mixing him up with Clevenger. I mix him and Clevenger.
Oh, long hair. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's the long hair.
Similar.
Sorry,
look.
Josh.
Yeah.
Josh listens to the pod. Sorry, Josh.
It's okay. I think he forgives us. But yeah, I mean, that was a little surprising. The Padres, they're still in it. They're on a little bit of a win streak now, so maybe not the most surprising that they want to stay put. But I'm a little surprised, to keep using that word, that they're at least not going to take calls on either Hader or Snell. Soto doesn't surprise me. That I don't think they were going to move him really anyway. And then the number one, as I already alluded to, is Shohei Ohtani, as much as we just talked about him, how fun it would be for him to be with the Orioles or the Diamondbacks, someone like that, a good young team. I just don't think the price is going to be there for multiple reasons. I don't think teams are going to want to give up a ton of prospects for a guy that they might lose at the end of the season. And rightfully so. The Angels should ask for a boatload because he is the best player in baseball, without a doubt. But like I said, do you want to gut your farm system for a rental? I saw one. If I do it in a heartbeat, but it would never get done. I don't know if you saw there was an article the other day that was posted about like top 5 trade packages for Shohei Ohtani for playoff contenders. The Red Sox were on the list, and it was a 1-for-1 swap of Ohtani for Marcelo Mayer, which I was like, there's no way that happens. If the Angels were stupid enough to do that, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I don't care how great of a player Mayer's probably going to be. But that's a deal you do it 10 times out of 10. But no chance you do a 1-for-1 prospect swap for Shohei Ohtani. That would be GM suicide if you're running the Angels.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what you could maybe get if you can't get 5 first-round picks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You get I got to settle for the.
No, yeah, like I don't care how good the prospect is. You have to get 3 or 4 pieces minimum.
Yeah, it's got to be at least
rental or not.
3 out of your top, we'll say 10 to 12 prospects, and then at least 2 young players off your major league roster that can contribute right away. So like that would be like Duran, Bayo, Mayer, probably like Roman. Like you throw the bag at the Angels, which the Red Sox wouldn't do because they're not in the business to do that anymore. But you'd have to give up a lot. Like I said, it wouldn't be a 1-for-1. Or the one I saw the Yankees, it was like Jason Dominguez, like Clark Schmidt and somebody else. It's like, okay, again, 3 for Ohtani is not going to get it done. So that's again, as great as a player as Dominguez is probably going to be. Yeah. What's up? Yeah.
Dominguez is a big name though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's their number 1 prospect, I think, as the last time I looked. But again, like you're going to have to do more than just a 1 top 10 prospect in all of baseball. You're going to have to load it up, and no team's going to do that. I don't know. Do you feel I know I ran through a lot of names pretty quick. Is there anybody that stands out to you, or maybe somebody that I didn't mention on a team that you don't think is going to get moved? If you had to pick someone.
No, I don't have anyone outright I don't think is going to get moved. But like I said, I just wish a couple of those Padres.
Exactly.
Spice things up a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, because I think Snell would be a solid piece here, as we talked about earlier. But
the more I look at it too, like I like Jordan Montgomery, but if we're talking to the Cardinals too, I wouldn't mind Jack Flaherty either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's on as we transition into that, my list of guys I think will go. I don't think he ends up with the Red Sox, though, unfortunately. Starting with number 10, guy I talked about last week, David Robertson. If the Mets are going to sell, they're probably going to sell off some minor pieces, some rentals. He makes the most sense. He's had an excellent season, getting up there in age. But 40 games, a 2.05 ERA, and 44 innings of work, 48 Ks, a 199 average against, and 7 saves and 14 opportunities. Braves and the Reds, they both need bullpen help trying to make a run in that division. I think he ends up going there. You get a nice setup guy for Devin Williams. If you're the Brewers, you get a nice setup guy for Alexis Diaz. If you're the Reds, I think that move would make a lot of sense for either one of those teams, battling it out, like I said, for the NL Central. Number 9, Elias Diaz, the MVP of the All-Star game, catcher for the Rockies. The Marlins I saw were in potentially on some catching depth. The Yankees, as I said earlier, looking to get some catching depth as well, or, upgrade at the catching position. If there's a catcher to be moved, more so than Contreras, I think Diaz is probably the easier of the choices. 10 homers this year, 48 RBIs would make a lot of sense for both of those teams. And as I said, the Yankees will probably end up being buyers, even though they shouldn't be. They'll probably end up making a move for this guy. They've been linked to him. Randall Grichuk is my number 8 outfielder for the Rockies. If it's not the Yankees, the Twins or Guardians, same thing. One of those 2 teams is going to have to win that division to get into the playoffs. Both could use a right-handed power bat. Grichuk's had a nice season in 60 games, hitting .313 with 6 homers and 25 RBI. So a good little bat for whichever team he ends up going to. As you mentioned, Jack Flaherty is my 7. Cardinals starter, 19 games this year, 7-6 with a .439 ERA. I think the Astros and the Rangers, pretty much all trade deadline, are going to be trying to one up the other for pitching. So whichever one of these guys or whichever one of these teams gets him will be in good shape to get Flaherty. Number 6, whichever team, like I said, doesn't get Flaherty, might end up getting this guy, Michael Lorenzen of the Tigers, one of the first 2 Tigers I have getting traded. 17 games, 5-6 with a .349 ERA, an all-star for the Tigers. Again, Rangers, Astros, both could use some starting pitching depth. He'd help a lot with either one of those 2 teams. Number 5, as we talked about, Eduardo Rodriguez. Like I said, the Reds could potentially end up doing a 1-for-1 swap with Jonathan India, or if the Red Sox want to stick to their belief that they want to get guys that they can, control for a couple of years, it would make a lot of sense to get Eduardo Rodriguez back here. Which, like, if you're the Tigers, it stinks. You sign this guy to be the ace of your team a year or two back. Like you said, there was some health problems. If you trade him, I feel like that just kind of signifies too that, like, what's the future of this team? Like, he was a guy young.
One of those teams that just don't have one until they actually get there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, a lot of prospects pan out and you get lucky. But like I said, like, it kind of sucks that you brought this. Like I said, you brought him in to be your ace. Things haven't panned out. You're going to trade him 2 years into the contract.
Yeah, like,
kind of sucks if you rerun.
If you're the Tigers, like, do you conceivably see yourself as a playoff team before the kid they drafted third this year gets there?
True. Yeah, you're kind of waiting on that kid, and like,
yeah, if you can get something for Erod, like, of course, like, he makes a lot of money over the next few years, but that team control could also be valuable in a sense.
Yeah, it should net you something pretty good.
It's a polarizing trade piece.
For sure. Yep. Number 4 for me, the Athletics lone all-star this year. Brent Rooker's had a nice year in the power department, 16 homers, 44 RBIs in 83 games. Like I said, Twins and Guardians, they need a right-handed bat. Maybe the Guardians need one a little bit more now that they don't have Ahmed Rosario anymore. I know different positions, but work with me here, people. Or the Rangers, they, again, could use a power bat. They've had a good offense this season, but, outfield depth, you can never have too much of that, and Rooker would slide in nicely to that offense, especially now that Corey Seager is injured, so maybe he fills a role there as a power bat in the middle of the lineup while he gets better. Number 3, pretty much every rental White Sox player. Again, I cheated a little bit here, but the White Sox seem like they're going to be pretty big sellers, unless you're talking about Dylan Cease, who today I saw a tweet saying that they are not going to trade him. They've declined pretty much every call that they've had on him, which stinks. I think he'd be a guy that the Red Sox should take a run at. I originally had him going to either the Orioles or the Giants, but we'll start with Joe Kelly. Like I said, Reds need another bullpen arm. Diamondbacks could use some bullpen help as well. Joe Kelly, a guy that's been proven success in the playoffs, especially. I think he goes to either one of those teams. Tim Anderson, I originally had going in a package deal with Lucas Giolito to the Dodgers, but now that the Dodgers got Ahmed Rosario, kind of struggle to find a spot for Tim Anderson. Giants could maybe use him, Diamondbacks as well. What are your thoughts on him, if you have any?
I'll just say this about the Reds, mentioning them with Joe Kelly. I don't want to play the Reds if I'm an NL team in the first round.
I don't. Good young team, hungry for playoffs. Haven't been in the playoffs in a while.
Not want the Reds if I'm in the NL.
Sneaky good team.
That's a team that could realistically fuck around and win a couple rounds.
Yeah, I could definitely see Cinderella story type of thing if they get in. I don't know where they are on the wild card right now, or if they're still. I think they're still leading the division over.
If
Milwaukee.
the Reds win a round, I might bet on them to win the World Series.
Could you imagine Ellie De La Cruz, already a polarizing player as is, get him in a playoff series? Like, just watch him go.
That's like the equivalent of the Blackhawks scraping up a good enough roster to get Connor Bedard in the playoffs the first year.
Yeah, that's year 1. Yep.
Really the equivalent. Like, he is the Connor Bedard of the league right now.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all. The other thing, too, on Tim Anderson, I know he's been downright horrible this season, so people are like, oh, what trade value does he have? I think he's definitely a guy that falls into that, change of scenery type of thing. Obviously played his whole career with the White Sox. You get him out of there, he might give you a little bit of a spark. Veteran guy that can play the middle infield, so definitely could help a team there. Like I already said, Giolito, I think, is destined to the Dodgers, especially if they don't get Lance Lynn, who I have going to the Rays.
There are 1 or 2 names every year that I see in the mix. I'm like, Dodger. Lucas Giolito is one of them.
And any big name pitcher that hits the market during the trade deadline. Like,
Lance Lynn hasn't had the greatest year, but like Lance Lynn has picked up enough, weight on his name, I feel like, the past few years. I can see him being a Dodger 100%.
Oh, I can't remember who had the tweet today, but it was a good one. They said, because I think it's going to be a 2-horse race between the Dodgers and the Rays. Those are the 2 teams that have been linked to Lynn the most over the last 24, 48 hours. And somebody said that it's like, okay, if the Dodgers or Rays want Lance Lynn, but like you said, how bad of a season he's had, doesn't that show you that they think they can, in typical Rays and Dodgers fashion, turn like the Dodgers have done with Ryan Brazier? I don't know if you saw, he's got like a 1.20 ERA for them.
Ryan Brazier, dude, he won me that Adley Rutschman bet by closing it out that night.
Yeah, there you
Adley Rutschman, Dodgers money line. That was a great win for me.
There you go.
Shout out Ryan Brazier.
But yeah, I mean, Giolito, I think, is destined to the Dodgers. Lynn, I think, is destined to the Rays. Just it's a matter of time.
One of them is going to end up there.
Absolutely.
I think we can say that safely.
Yep, for sure. Jordan Montgomery, we talked about him a little bit. If the Red Sox don't want to bite on him, Giants, as I said, could use some starting pitching depth. Same thing with the Rangers. The Rangers, that's really their one weakness right now, is they're kind of top heavy rotation. You get him, fill out that rotation. And again, we saw last year he was a spark plug type of guy for the Cardinals in their run to the playoffs. So very well could see him doing that again. And then number one, the two-way tie with the Cubs. I feel like a lot of people kind of think the Cubs don't really know what they want to do either, if they're going to be buyers or sellers. I think they're probably going to end up selling. I think they're 6 or 7 games out of that third wild card spot. So a tough position to be in there. Cody Bellinger is destined to be moved. I think he's going to be the hottest bat of the trade deadline. I saw maybe the Rangers linked to him, the Marlins as well. But
the Yankees were better. He screams the Yankees.
Absolutely. That was
so much.
That was the start of the month. People were like, oh, he's destined to go to the Yankees, and they started losing games. It's like, okay, maybe the Yankees don't buy.
It's a shame, man. It's a shame.
I'd hate to see that too, because Cody Bellinger's had such a phenomenal season, a bounce back year. He's been great for the Cubs. To see him go to the Yankees, if that would happen, would just be such a kick in the pants.
It'd be so funny too, because like,
Yankees fans would be like, we got Bellinger, like, oh, we're gonna come out from the cellar of the division.
Now we're gonna get Ohtani and Soto in the offseason.
Yeah, exactly. Just he's on a 1-year contract, so get ready for that when the offseason starts. Yankees need an outfield bat, maybe a first baseman. They'll get Bellinger. He'll be great.
I think the funniest thing with the Yankees this year too is how good Aaron Hicks has been since
for the Orioles. Yeah.
Yep. That's just classic.
Oh, again, change of scenery guy. Couldn't hack it in New York. We've seen that plenty of times with guys. They get out, and Sonny Gray's another one. Stunk when he was with the Yankees. Now he's dominating. Was at the start of the year dominating with the Twins. But Bellinger, to me, keep an eye on Dave Dombrowski. Loves to make those big moves.
He does seem like a Dombrowski guy.
Phillies could use Bryce Harper's been good over there. Made a great catch where he almost killed himself jumping into the camera well his first night at first base. But get a real first baseman for a playoff run. Cody Bellinger could slot in there. Get Kyle Schwarber out of left field because he's been horrendous out there. He's not, as we know, he's not a good defender in the outfield. Bellinger could slide in there as well, or play some center field, move some guys around. So that would be a good versatile add for the Phillies for their playoff push. And Marcus Stroman, as I alluded to, I think a Blue Jays reunion is destined for him. Really haven't seen a lot of other teams interested, or at least rumblings of the Blue Jays were the first team I saw. And again, it makes a lot of sense. Get him back there for the Blue Jays playoff push, because like you said, he is a guy that definitely can step up in the big moments and is not shy when it comes to that market, and has, again, plenty of familiarity with the American League and the AL East. So Blue Jays would be a good addition for him.
No, I agree.
All right.
Absolutely.
Any other names maybe that come to the top of your mind that I did not mention? Guys you maybe want to see moved, maybe a sneaky move that you think could happen, or maybe some other guys on this list that you think could go elsewhere?
I would have said Shane Bieber if he wasn't hurt.
Yep, but I had him going to maybe the Giants. I can't remember exactly, but definitely had him on the list at first. Then when he got hurt, I'm like, okay, he's not going to get moved at all, and then completely took him off. He won't be moved because it's obvious. Like, you're not going to trade for a guy that's on the 60-day injured list and won't be back. I saw her until I think it's like mid-September. So at that point, that's a gamble and a half trading for that guy.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing too crazy for me.
Nope.
I think I'm in paying attention to most of the consensus names. No one really outside of the box. But I do wonder, like I said with the Red Sox, if Bobby Delbeck gets moved. So we'll see.
Yeah,
on that.
I didn't even answer that. You asked me that earlier, and I completely just did not answer you.
You didn't answer it.
Yeah, so apologies about that. But that's a move I think the Red Sox should be stupid not to make. Like, you're getting all these prospects in here. Guys are getting called up to Worcester. They're starting to, bang on the door a little bit here. Delbeck's probably your best trade piece from just a big guy with big league experience, has had success this year in AAA, doesn't have a roster spot here in Boston. Move him for some sort of pitching help. I think that would be like a 1-for-1 type of swap. Would make a lot of sense if there's a team out there that needs him.
I wonder if he could be commoditized by certain teams as well, because whether they need depth at the position or not, but it's one of those guys playing pretty good and a kind of like an FU year to try to prove himself again in AAA. Does the right team take advantage of that and see him as a guy that can play fairly regularly? Maybe, but he's an interesting guy to watch for me. But I think we're good to transition into some Patriots and NFL stuff as we wrap the show up here. Trent Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Lawrence Guy, and Jack Jones were all in attendance today at training camp. Marte Mapu is still recovering from shoulder surgery. He was in a red non-contact jersey. So I totally glanced by the article to read it, but it sounds like Bill Belichick is excited to have him around, which is good. Special teamers Chad Ryland and Bryce Baringer were the first two Patriots brought on the field today. And they signed a guy they've been linked to last year from Navy, Diego Fagot, and Jaylen Hurd. Fagot sounds like he could be a good special teams guy, so that piques my interest with how the Patriots have done with special teams guys. But Jaylen Hurd's very interesting because he's a third-round pick, fairly highly touted receiver in that draft. Just ridiculous injury trouble. Like, I'm not sure. I don't think he stepped on the field once.
He's
got size. He moves well. He was a guy I was really into that year. Looking at receivers, reading about receivers that year. This is just a classic one of those signings that, kind of flies under the radar because nobody's really thinking about him. And maybe he becomes a depth guy on the practice squad for the Patriots. There's enough to like there, like where you haven't seen the NFL sample size yet due to injuries, but there's no downside to this move. He's a very good college receiver, some size. The Patriots don't have a ton of size in the receiver group right now. If he factors in and contributes in any fashion, this is a good pickup. And I wonder if they can turn Fagot into their next special teams masterclass.
Yeah, that one screams.
He's
like
at least a practice squad guy too. Maybe.
Absolutely, that one screams to me like a kind of needle in the haystack type of thing. And again, it kind of boils down to you can't really get mad about the team trying to fill out their 90-man roster at this point. So like, it's not a move you're gonna be like, oh, why'd they bring this guy in? I'm with you. The Hurd one's enticing to me because you said he was a good receiver in college, arguably a better running back. Rushed for just under 3,000 yards in his career, 23 touchdowns and 637 attempts. The actual number was 2,844 rushing yards. So a dual threat type of guy there, receiver and running back. Again, screams typical Patriot. And like you said, has not been able to get on the field ever. Drafted in 2019 by the 49ers. He's been out of football since 2021. So he would make, you got to think his rookie debut if he makes the Patriots and plays at any point for the Patriots this season. But as we talked about before, with the uncertainty at wide receiver, some injuries, concerns there. It was nice to see Juju Smith-Schuster out on the field and not really limited at all. So that was good from an injury standpoint with him. Same thing with Tyquan Thornton. You can never have too many wide receivers on this team. And a guy, like you said, if he stands out at all in training camp this year and in the preseason, got to think he's going to make a name for himself as an enticing little option there.
No, yeah. Like the majority of his success came at Tennessee, 899 yards to the air, 5 touchdowns, 1120 rushing yards, and 7 touchdowns his freshman year, 1,285 yards to the air. Or no, I have them mixed up. Sorry. The 899 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns were on the ground. The receiving yards were 35 catches, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns. His sophomore year, 1,285 yards on the ground and 277 carries, 12 touchdowns, and 190 yards to the air, 2 touchdowns. Junior year, 122 carries, 3 touchdowns in Tennessee, just 10 catches for 81 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. And then it kind of flipped. That one year at Baylor, they saw him more as a receiver. He had 290 yards on the ground, 48 carries, 3 touchdowns, and 946 yards the air and 4 touchdowns. So, man, this is one of those gadget guys you have to get a little excited about, I think.
Absolutely.
Is this guy going to step in? Like, it's also different because you see guys like this struggle to pan out, but a lot of times it's because of performance or not quite cracking it. He just hasn't gotten a shot because he hasn't
straight up because of injury. Yeah.
Like, they could get a steal out of Jaylen Hurd, even if it's just for a year. There's no downside to this move. I like it. Dual threat, like, don't see tons of players like that, honestly. Intriguing to look at. We've got some news, mainly with the Giants, to be honest with you. Saquon signs a 1-year deal worth up to 100. Was that 111? 11 million with a $2 million signing.
After
bonus.
all the problems with running backs, $111 million contract. Here you go.
I think it all kind of melted together with Andrew Thomas's 5-year extension. He got fucking paid. I like Andrew Thomas a lot. I think he's very good and has an extremely bright future as one of the best young linemen in the league. I did not expect $17.5 million.
No, that's a lot.
$67 million guaranteed. But
people wonder why running backs don't get paid. We just talked about that last week, that you could put it on the offensive line for running back success. And clearly Andrew the Giants feel that way.
Andrew Thomas is a financial piece. I guess he is foundational piece of that team.
He is
on
now.
their O-line, and I assume they're hoping Evan Neal to be the same. They've spent some high draft capital on offensive tackles the last few years. Andrew Thomas, one of them, gets the bag. He's very good. Was an absolute stud at Georgia. Uchenna Nwosu gets a 3-year, $59 million extension with $32 million guaranteed from Seattle. Trevon Diggs re-ups for 5 years, $97 million. I think that could be a steal. A $21.25 million signing bonus. And speaking of steals, Justin Herbert sets the bar for Joe Burrow. I think this deal, 5 years, $262.5 million, $218.7 guaranteed, has ridiculous steal potential. I think within the next 2 years, Justin Herbert can be, on a longer term deal, like a $100 million contract guy.
Mm-hmm.
To get him at 5 years at this dollar is a no-brainer, no hesitation type of deal if I were making the decision. How do you feel about these deals with Herbert in particular? Because I don't understand why anybody would have anything negative to say about this Herbert deal.
I was just going to say that there was
maybe looking at 280.
Oh, he's going to get paid.
300 million. He could get 300.
Absolutely.
They're not too far off, but 300 is conceivable, I think, for Joe Burrow. I don't think that's too crazy.
No, absolutely not. The Herbert thing, it kind of falls into the same boat as the Jaylen Brown thing, because I saw people on Twitter that were like, really? Justin Herbert's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL? And again, it's like, that is I don't understand.
Make $100 million this year.
It's insane. But again, I don't understand what people don't get about, like, this is the market for these players. Quarterbacks are not going to take pay cuts. They're not going to get underpaid. Especially when you're a franchise quarterback. Yeah, exactly. Unless like the Patriots, if you force Tom Brady to take pay cuts, or Aaron Rodgers maybe takes them just to be a dick to the Packers, could be a possibility. He's a dick. Right. Yeah, but yeah, the people, like I said, that just were questioning, I'm with you. That's a steal for Justin Herbert. Again, he didn't have the greatest year last year, but as we talked about, I'm pretty sure when we were talking about Justin Herbert, maybe people knocking him, the guy played with, what was it, fractured ribs or cracked rib, whatever it was, whatever his injury was. So yeah, the guy maybe is going to take a little bit of a hit when he can't probably function like he normally would be able to. So I have no problem with that deal at all. I have no problem with, Trevon Diggs getting his contract, because that's a staple of the Cowboys defense on that team. I'm interested to see what CeeDee Lamb's going to get if they look to extend him, which they should, because he's probably the staple of the offense on that team. I think more so than Dak Prescott, because that's how I feel about Dak. But yeah, I'm fine with either one of those two contracts. I don't think either team really splurged all that much for two very important pieces of the two separate teams.
No, I agree 100%. I think these are pretty standard. And cool to see Uchenna Nwosu to cash out. Yep. He's kind of a guy that flies under the radar, but he's been pretty solid dating back to his days with the Chargers as well.
It's all about real quick too. Sorry. It's all about, I forgot to mention, position thing. Like, you have to pay for top tier corners and you have to pay for top tier quarterbacks. That's exactly what the Cowboys and Chargers did.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can complain too much if you're a fan of either of those teams. Marcus Peters, one of those late in the summer signings. The Raiders need any help in that corner group. I think Marcus Peters still has some ability. Jacoby Myers, speaking of the Raiders, converts his base salary of $3.92 million to a signing bonus, while also adding to two void years to his contract, creating just over $3 million in space. Josh Jacobs will not report. That's going to be fascinating to monitor. He seems the most stubborn. The Commanders, maybe they're cutting costs, but release Andrew Norwell, who started 16 games for them.
Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense.
Good guard for them. You think with a young quarterback, they like to keep Andrew Norwell, a proven guy. Maybe he hasn't looked great this summer. I don't know what the deal is there, but it's very bizarre. I think somebody should jump all over signing Andrew Norwell.
Absolutely.
I think he's still got some ability left in the tank. CJ Gardner-Johnson avoided serious injury after telling Philly fans a few days ago that he fucking hates them, essentially. He's considered day-to-day.
Talk about real quick, just his absolute karma. Like, you'd be a dick to people that really supported you, and then, oh crap, my season almost ended days later. Like,
seriously, dude, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Nyheim Hines, speaking of injuries, will miss the entire season after a jet ski accident. There's apparently some sort of financial dispute where he might have to pay the bills. They're not like paying his salary.
I was just gonna ask if, like, from a financial standpoint, if he could sue somebody.
I'm not. Yeah. I'm not going to act like I know the details, but I saw something saying that his salary could be impacted and he could have to pay the bills, or his agent could have to pay the bills. That's freaking bizarre.
Just
I'm
for
not going to
sitting
act
on
like
a
I
jet
have.
ski and getting run
I'm not
into
going to
by some
act
other
like.
idiot.
I think it's like an injury, like
Oh, okay.
liability type of thing.
Gotcha.
Like I said, I'm not going to act like I know all the
Oh,
details.
so probably one of those things
saw
like
something about
clause
that.
of like, hey, don't go jet skiing in the off season.
Yeah,
Things could happen.
hit by a jet ski.
Like, yeah.
I guess. I
But
don't
that's
know.
one of the crazier. I don't know if we had any other thoughts on that. One of the crazier stories, injury stories. I feel like we've seen in a while.
You
Like
wonder,
you're just chilling on a jet ski and somebody runs in. Like I'd like to know what the person was doing that ran into him. Like how do you hit a
wonder
guy
if
on a
that,
jet ski?
opens them up as a Dalvin Cook spot.
I was wondering the same thing
They
myself.
could make the room for it. I don't think they currently have it. Cole Kmet, I was quite surprised to see this because I don't think Cole Kmet is worth this yet. He says a 4-year, $50 million extension with the Bears could absolutely be worth it. I don't think he is right now. I don't think that's unfair to say.
I think you saw him build some rapport.
$32.8 million guaranteed.
Late in the season with
that's a
Fields, so
foundational piece for him potentially. So if you have
that's
to
all I
overpay,
take it
whatever.
is. Yeah,
And like look at the team like the Bears. They spent a little bit of money this year.
they got plenty of cap
particularly
space.
on Edwards, but like this isn't a deal that'll corrupt them financially, I don't think, in the next 4 years. Obviously, if Justin Fields pans out, he's going to take a huge chunk of change eventually, but I don't think this is a deal that's going to bankrupt them. I think it's an overpay right now, but I don't think it's one like any Bears fan should be screaming about. Aaron Rodgers takes a pay cut with the Jets. He voluntarily took a $35 million pay cut on his 2-year deal. This will allow the Jets to acquire more talent. As Adam Schefter said, and the breakdown is now he gets a $35 million roster bonus, so he gets that paid back in 4 days. He makes $1.8 million in base salary and 38.1 next year. He has a no tag and a no trade clause. Makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't you try to get that type of protection for yourself at this point in your career?
Absolutely.
It's whatever. I mean, we'll see what the Jets do with it, but right now it's kind of like a wait and see type of thing. And Nick Chubb, I had not seen this until you put it in the outline. He said, right now, there's nothing really we can do. Kind of handcuffed in the situation. But the only position that our production hurts us the most, we go out there and run 2,000 yards with so many carries. Next year, they're going to say, you're probably worn down. It's tough. It hurts us at the end of the day for Jeremy Fowler. He's right.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about that last week because I thought I just added to talk about, as we touched on last week, the latest with the running back situation. I think, I don't know what the number was. It was at least, 10 of the premier running backs held that Zoom call Saturday. I think this was one of the quotes from after it. So Nick Chubb obviously speaking out. Funny, too, that Saquon Barkley was one of the big names part of that Zoom call, talking about how running backs get underpaid. And like a day later, yeah, I'll sign my contract. It's okay. I'm back to play. So that was kind of funny to watch. Yeah, but like you said, Chubb's right. We kind of talked about
also
it a little
hard.
bit.
New York Giants want to sign me.
Yes, yeah. Yep. But yeah, we talked about, like I said last week, a little bit that Nick Chubb's 100% right in this. Like the position dictates it. It is kind of insane that if you have a good year, like you would think, rushing for 2,000 yards, having double-digit touchdowns, you would think teams would be like, oh, we're definitely going to pay you because that obviously shows your value to the team. But most teams in this case, like Nick Chubb said, think the opposite, where you're going to have a little bit of wear and tear from last year. Maybe we're going to lowball you here because we don't think you can put up these numbers again. So it is a crappy situation for running backs right now. But like he said, it's what the market is. That's kind of been the theme of the show, bringing it up now a third time. But I'm interested to see if anything changes with the running backs. As we said last week, though, probably not going to happen because that's just the way 99% of the teams in the NFL, I feel like, operate. Is like, hey, we can find another replacement for you. We don't have to pay you all this money no matter what you do for us.
Yeah, and Chubb's perspective is interesting in this case too, because he was the last guy to get one of those big deals.
True. Yep.
So he has a different,
perspective on it.
Hat to wear in this discussion. So yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb from all accounts seems like a pretty level-headed, smart guy.
Yeah, he's never had any sort of problems or anything. So a good kind of voice to have.
Got his bag when he got it. Because I mean, look at his teammate too. Like Kareem Hunt's looking for a deal too.
That still is.
He's the guy for the Bills.
Forgot he was even out there until I heard somebody bring that up last week. That he's still looking for a job, which is crazy to think. Like that's a guy that shouldn't garner a lot of money.
How it is, man. I mean, it sucks, but it's just how it is.
Yep.
I don't really see it getting better, but there's a lot I don't know. So
exactly.
It's something to monitor. Maybe Saquon biting the bullet and taking a 1-year deal jumpstarts things a little bit. Maybe it doesn't. We shall see, but I assume Giants fans are pretty pumped. So.
Yeah, you would think. Like I said, we joked about it a little bit last year that Saquon Barkley at times was basically that whole team's offense. So you bring him back, you bring up a tackle to help out Saquon Barkley a little bit there, and you should be good to go.
Andrew Thomas is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You got to overpay for a guy like him. Do it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, probably won't end up being too much of an overpay. But
no.
Catching up on some Twitter football things.
We do have a baseball little tidbit that broke that relates to the guys that will not be traded. 10 minutes ago from Tom Verducci. If you were listening to this and hope that Shohei Ohtani were on the market or was going to be on the market, according to Tom Verducci, reporting that the Angels took offers on Ohtani, but after internal meetings today, they pulled him off the trade market and are going to be buyers. So the Angels are going to be in the market for some players. Yeah, I mean, I had to look up where they are in the standings because I think they have been playing a little better, though. They might be on a win streak, 3 or 4 games, if I remember correctly from looking earlier today. The Angels currently are 52-49, 6.5 games out of the West, but they are only 4 games out of their wild card spot, 2 behind the Red Sox, 1 behind the Yankees. So you're going to think they can catch the Yankees and then hope that maybe the Red Sox can catch Toronto and obviously they got to jump a couple of teams here and there, but 4 games out of it, not the craziest, thing if they can catch fire and some teams fall apart in front of them. The Yankees are falling apart, I think. That's not crazy to say. Angels have won 2 games in a row, not 3.
To me, it kind of feels like you got to trade Ohtani regardless. With all the trade stuff, do you really get the sense if you're the Dodgers, unless there's something clearly we're missing, that he would even sign there in any scenario?
That's what I mean. I wonder if the Angels are going to be dumbfounded and think that they can keep it. I feel like if they miss the playoffs again, he's 100% gone. There's no way he stays.
That's
especially
if you miss the
teams
playoffs,
get into a bidding war.
Nothing for Shohei Ohtani.
That's the chance they take, and it is a very
Look at the recent history of your team. Do you think in year 1 of potentially scraping into the playoffs, you're going to make a run? Or do you think maybe you can scrape in without Ohtani somehow? Maybe just do it for fun. Like you get into the playoffs, sell some more tickets, whatever. You can't think right now, unless there's something I'm missing, like I said, with the Angels, that you're going to keep Ohtani long term. So you have to get something for him, whether it's on a rental basis or a team that believes they can sign him long term, or he has previous interest in signing long term with. I think there is no scenario where you don't trade Shohei Ohtani.
Well, like I said earlier, I think that I wonder if
at least not.
Yeah, I wonder though, like they said, I mean, they obviously took calls on him. So I wonder if as I mentioned earlier, as they were taking calls, hey, what do you want for Shohei Ohtani? Give us your top 3 or top 5 prospects and two young stars on your major league roster. Teams probably hung up the phone because again, I don't think teams I am 100%. I'm with you. I think that it would be dumb to lose Ohtani for nothing, but I really do think, and again, rightfully so, the Angels should ask high. No team at the trade deadline is going to give you half of their prospects and a couple of young players for a rental guy. Exactly. I think that's going to scare too many teams away.
A ton of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I feel like in the league this year too, there's no one team that's this unbelievably overwhelming favorite to win the World Series right now.
I think the Braves might be, but as you saw last night, the Red Sox beat them 7-1 in a game where the Red Sox hit into a triple play. So maybe that showed a weakness to the Braves there a little bit. But again, they don't need Shohei Ohtani. So
yeah, I mean, I don't even know if they can afford it.
They probably can't. Yeah,
Freeman, Albies makes not a ton. Acuna makes a ton. Do they have any big pitchers, big money wise?
No, the Braves. The Braves probably could, because I think that a lot of their young guys, the Acunas, the Albies, they're all signed under $100 million contracts that are nowhere close to what.
What happened to all those pitchers like Fultinovich and Soroka? Are they still?
Fultinovich flamed out. He was horrible. He had 2 good years and then got hurt and never bounced back. He was bouncing around with Texas, I think, a year or 2 ago. Soroka was working back from either Tommy John or
he got
some sort of injury. Yeah. So he hasn't been 100%.
I think Soroka looked like he was going to be the guy.
He was supposed to be the next big thing. Yeah. And Strider kind of jumped him. So now it's Spencer Strider's world. Yeah. Which is a pretty good consolation prize.
Freed as well.
Yep. He's supposed to be coming back, I think Friday or sometime over the weekend. So, but that's the thing too. I wanted to mention about the Angels really quick, because I wonder if they got news internally that Mike Trout is maybe closer to coming back than they thought, because I think the deadline was right around when he was supposed to be coming back.
Yeah.
So maybe they
Like,
said, hey, good news there. So they'll try to make a run now if he's back.
If you're them, you have to hope Trout comes back to get them to at least some sort of run, or else you just like, how do you have any confidence that you should keep Ohtani right now?
I don't know.
To my knowledge, he hasn't been outright like, oh, I'd like to stay with the Angels, has he?
Not that I've seen. I mean, he's been kept quiet on everything. Whenever he's been asked, he's been like, I'm focused on this year pretty much. So
this is really like an unprecedented player situation in MLB history.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like it's fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. And for the chaos factor of it all, I hope he gets traded for $1 million prospects.
It would be something. I mean, just to see what he could get back would be
the Yankees
ridiculous.
Trade for him and lose him. That is the ideal
scenario. That'd be the in the moment. Oh crap! The Yankees just traded for Shohei Ohtani, but then once the trade comes out, you realize, they gave up, half their prospects, and they're the Yankees. They'll probably lose the Astros in hysterical fashion in the ALCS again. Then we'll have a good laugh about it. But I mean, you never want to see a player of Ohtani's caliber go. That I'm sure once the season ends, as soon as the final pitch of the World Series is thrown, you'll get the Yankees are in on Ohtani, and everyone thinks that Ohtani will just sign for the Yankees. Rumors, because that's how it goes. I'm real quick now that I know that I'm going to change one of my baseball predictions because, like I said, I really didn't know where to put Tim Anderson. I'll have him go to the Angels. I think change of scenery, middle infielder, nice little veteran piece there that can play multiple positions. Maybe the Angels, because I don't know what else really that, like I said, blindsided me. Don't really know what else they need. They could probably use some pitching, some bullpen help. But you get a bat and Tim Anderson maybe at the top of the order, get him right, pair him with Ohtani and Trout, maybe go on a little bit of a run and prove some people like you and I wrong. Maybe Ohtani stays.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It fascinates me.
It does. Yep.
It really does. But excuse me. That's going to wrap it up for episode 152. Here for you on another Wednesday night. Next week, we'll be talking all things MLB and the trade deadline and then some. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for listening. New and old listeners, we hope you continue to, follow along and stuff. You can find us wherever you find your podcast. You can find us on Twitch and YouTube as well. We're pretty much everywhere from what I can tell. So, wherever you like to listen, please do so. I also found out that we are available on a streaming app on Roku. So if you're a Roku streamer or have any interest in doing that, check that out. But yeah, you can find us anywhere. Like I said, the Full Press Coverage Twitch and YouTube channels, definitely go give those a follow. Get our numbers up there. You can find us on Twitter as well. You can find me at Mike_Cratty, Ryan at Ryan_Salvaggio, and the show at Salvaggio and Cratty Pod. We're posting a little bit on TikTok, so search our name up there and you'll find us. Get to 800 followers. That would be pretty cool. And yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, stay cool if you're in the heat this time of year, which you probably are, because it's been hot as fuck lately. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay cool, be nice to people, all that good stuff, and we'll talk to you next week.